Well, hello, this is Pastor Matthew Woods from Grace Lutheran Church in New Albany, Indiana. And this is the daily devotion for March 1st, 2021. Wow, it's got here fast. Today's title is A Fixed Point in an Ever-Changing World. Today I'd like to start off reading from Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, which says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart." That word perseverance always strikes me because it's a word that effectively talks about being stretched to our absolute limit, to the point where we almost break, but by the grace of God we don't. In our weakness, then we are strong, right? That's what the scriptures tell us. One would certainly look at the previous chapter, usually nicknamed the Hall of Faith, and see in every example someone who was stretched to their absolute limit, but by the grace of God, by their faith in God, they did not break. They remained focused on the Lord. By faith, Noah worked his tail off, building an ark based on the instructions God had given him, applying every skill that he had in a world that was utterly and completely fallen. And by faith, Abraham was 100 years old when he had his son Isaac, and then agonized after a very sleepless night, no doubt about it, having been instructed to take Isaac and go sacrifice him. We also hear by faith, Rahab welcomed the Israelite spies in Jericho at great risk to her own life. These and countless others are considered the great cloud of witnesses that we are to draw encouragement from, inspiration from. And that's what Hebrews 12:2, or rather 12:1, is referring to when it calls it a great cloud of witnesses. There are many who have gone before us who have endured many trials, many things, but have kept themselves focused on the Lord, and because of that, they entered into the Hall of Faith. These witnesses lived in our world too. They didn't have it easier, by the way. I would guess life was, in many ways, much harder. I would imagine Noah would have liked having power tools and cranes and equipment that would have helped him build that ark. And I'm sure his wife, Mrs. Noah, would have been grateful for a convection oven, or a refrigerator, or a washing machine, or a dryer, or a microwave, any of those things that we take for granted. And I'll bet Abraham would have preferred to be much younger before having Isaac, no doubt. Today, most of us would probably have preferred not going through the kind of year that we just had. Some of us lost jobs, some of us lost loved ones. School is online and meetings are online. Gag, everything's online. It's just too much online, not enough interaction. Most of us didn't realize what we were about to get into, what COVID was going to give us, for sure. But this is more evidence that we live in a fallen world, an ever-changing world because of that sin. And this is why we fix our eyes on Jesus and his cross, because he is a fixed point when life is rocking and rolling about, leaving us unsteady and off balance. That's that one thing that keeps us from getting dizzy, if you will, or sick, or overwhelmed by this world. How important, then, is a fixed point? Consider one of the most famous movies, at least in my mind, one of the better movies that are out there, 1995, Apollo 13. The movie's most famous line, of course, was, "Houston, we have a problem." Many, in fact, they had many problems, in fact. There was a design flaw that caused an explosion of one of their oxygen tanks, blew out half the ship, if you will. On this ill-fated trip, it became a story of survival. The astronauts didn't sleep much. One of them ended up with a UTI, and without heat, they were in a capsule that was just freezing, literally. Truly, these guys were stretched to their limits. Absolutely stretched to their limits. On the sixth day, of the troubled mission, the astronauts had to make a critical course correction in order to make it home. To conserve power, all the computers had already been turned off, all the navigation computers with it. So they had to do a 39-second burn on their main engine in order to make this correction. And since the computer wasn't working, they had to do all of the steering manually, making tiny adjustments just to stay on course, which was not an easy thing to do. Easier said than done, in fact. The key to this is they had to have, in order for it to work, they had to have a fixed point to focus on, and they had one in the window. And that, of course, was home, planet Earth. So they fixed their gaze on that, and when they started that engine, they just kept trying to keep that on the center. By keeping this reference point in the window, as the astronauts were able to get back on course and eventually get back home. So many things on that Apollo 13 mission didn't go as planned. And maybe after this last year we can relate to that, because I would suggest that this last year felt more like Apollo 13 than the guys that landed on the moon. Not very exciting, I'm sure. Just a matter of survival. Let's get through this. Adapting to very uncomfortable scenarios, all the while hoping at some point we were going to get back to some kind of normal. But most things don't stay normal forever, as we all know, and if we're truthful with ourselves. Just, for example, just retiring means all kinds of adjustments and changes in income and how things work, going to the doctor and so on. All of that medical, all changes. Losing a spouse or a parent will change a lot of things too. And then we adapt again. But as Christians, we adapt with our eyes fixed on home, to where we're headed, the way we're propelled towards. By keeping Jesus in our line of sight, in our window, we are aiming for something fixed, someone fixed, someone that never changes, according to Hebrews 13:8. Jesus is the same yesterday, tomorrow, and today. Like that capsule, we may make a course correction or two or three or many, in fact, but the momentum of life is ultimately going to carry us towards home. It's inevitable. We will get there safely because Jesus promised it so. Maybe not comfortably, maybe not always according to our plans, but we will get there because Jesus has promised a safe arrival for all who believe and don't lose heart. Just a couple of announcements this week. Wednesday night, we will continue our series on the road to perdition. Jesus, the road to perdition. We'll be looking at overturning of the tables in the temple, the money changers and so on. I'm going to be looking at that. What was Jesus provoking there, I wonder? That's what we're going to be looking at on Wednesday. Also coming up, I want to encourage those who maybe haven't thought about it or haven't signed up yet. We still need a few more people for Sugar Bush this weekend. We're expecting it to be a nice weekend and a busy one. So if you have the opportunity, if you can spare just one shift, even Saturday morning, Sunday morning, or afternoons, we would appreciate it very much. That's when we need a little bit more help. Blood Drive is also coming up, by the way, on March 11th, and our next Fish Fry is March 12th. And by the way, thank you so much for supporting our preschool. For those of you who came and got fish, we really appreciate that and your support of the preschool, which in a year like we've had, can use all the help it can get. So we appreciate that very much. So as we round things out today, I pray that the Lord would be with you and let us keep our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, and may we never lose heart, no matter what the world throws at us. And now may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with his favor and give you his peace in Jesus. I'm Pastor Woods. Thanks for being with us today. Bye-bye.